with the shoot of the Rabbi Rashi Rav Tuval, with Hanasir Presidente, Rav Ashkenazi, thank you very much. The members of the board, of the Kehillah, members of the Sfarad, thank you very much. I'm very grateful to have an opportunity to be able to share some of the Brit Torah with you. I think I'm going to, they want to use in YouTube, right?
You can stand.
Can I stand?
With all this.
Yeah, I prefer to stand because I'd rather see everybody better. Okay? Okay. I want to say that I'm very grateful to be able to share the Brit Torah with you. I have to say, Rav Toval, I was here, I think, was it 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago. And Hacham, he took me on a tour of the whole Keilah. And this morning, I saw the school. I'm going back to London with inspiration and tremendous excitement of what's happening here in this Keilah. Baruch Hashem, it's really le'pe'er v'tiferet. It's pe'er v'tiferet. It's beautiful. And the truth is, I travel a lot in the world, and there is no kind of Keilah like this Keilah. It's really, really wonderful. And I'm very grateful to be able to be a guest here, to visit here. And I thank you very much for your time tonight. I said many times, and I continue to say, I believe that the most precious thing that any one person can give to someone else is attention, especially today. So I appreciate and I am grateful for your attention. I do not take that for granted. I recognize that it's valuable. But I'm going to begin what I was hoping to share with you tonight. And what I'm sharing with you tonight is, it's connected to what it is that we're coming up with. Inshallah, Shi'abu Alayna Shalom, Shavuot is coming. And that we know Shavuot is Hag Matan Toratin. It's the time that we received our Torah. Now the truth of the matter is, we don't say in our tefillah that it's the time that we received the Torah. We say Zaman Matan Toratin. It's the time that HaKadosh Hu gave us the Torah. The receiving of the Torah is always a question. Do we take it or not? And every Shavuot, that question is presented to us. Would you like to receive the Torah or not? And every year we can answer that question at a different level. What can I take? What can I open myself to receive from the Torah? So today I want to give you a bit of a broad perspective. The people who have been learning with me for a while, and I see some of them in the audience, and perhaps some of them are on, on the Zoom, they know that for me, I follow Divrei Hachamim. This one line of the Hachamim is very special to me. Hachamim say, Le'olam yu divrei Torah biyadicha kiralim, which means always the words of the Torah should be as principles for you, should be ideas for you. You should begin the big ideas of the Torah, and then the details you should learn to put into the ideas. So the Ramchal quotes this. He quotes this at the beginning of Da'at Ibunot and Derech Hashem. He brings that, he says, the Torah always has to be klalim. He says, why? Because when we have the klalim, when we have the principles, we know all the details what to do with them. But if all we have is details, and we don't have the principles, we don't know what to do with the details. So what I want to share with you tonight is one principle. And I believe it is a principle that is essential for us to be able to have for all of our life. But certainly before we go into Shavuot, when we have to answer the question, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's noten Torah, are we receiving the Torah? Do we ready to accept the Torah? So the first thing that I want to think about with you is this. For Klal Yisrael, for Am Yisrael, for the Jewish people, everything that we have, everything that we do, this entire Kehillah, the school, the Midrash, the Bet Knesset, this Kehillah, and every Kehillah in the entire world is based on one thing, and one thing only. And that is Brit, covenant, a promise between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which started with Abraham Avinu. And that is the foundation. sometimes it's so much of a foundation that we forget it's there. And we think about all of the other things that we're doing, but it's important for us to remember that everything that we do is based on that breed, on that covenant. And that is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is what we believe. I want to also say to you tonight, I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm simply speaking to you from within Torah. So this is what it is that I present to you from Torah. You take it or not, that's again, it's a question of whether you receive it. I'm not trying to convince anybody, but I'm speaking to you from a place of Torah, from within the Torah. And everything that we do is based on that brit, on that covenant that HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Abraham Avinu established. And even later, at Har Sinai, when we stood at the mountain, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah, Harambam writes, all of it, Moshe Rabbeinu and the giving of the Torah, he writes at the end of L'chot Avodah Zarah, the first parak, the end of the first parak of L'chot Avodah Zarah, Me'ahavat Adonai Otanu, U'meshu'ato shenishba la'Abraham Avinu, Asa Moshe Rabbeinu shlacho kedei le'odiam derech avodato, which means, from the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had for us, and from the promise that he made with Abraham Avinu, he made Moshe Rabbeinu, and he sent Moshe to teach us the mitzvot and the Torah and how we should connect to him. But all of Moshe and all of Sinai and everything that happened there was what? Shuat Abraham Avinu, what he did with Abraham. So that is a brit. We believe that we have this covenant with HaKadosh Baruch Hu for all generations. And the question is, what is the fundamental nature of that brit? How are we supposed to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and how does HaKadosh Baruch Hu expect us to be able to be? So the best place for us to look is the Torah, because the Torah is written as Sefer HaPerit. It's the book that is the user's guide for the brit, for the covenant. And how does the book begin? I was at the coronation of the king. I'm just telling you that because I wanted to tell you that. I was at the coronation of the king, and sitting in back of me was the former Archbishop of Canterbury. So there's the Anglican Church. He's the head of the whole. He was the head of the whole Anglican Church. So I was talking to him. We know each other. I said, "What have you been doing?" He said, I'm studying biblical Hebrew." That's what he's doing. I said, "Really?" I said, "How is it going?" He said, "It's good." I said, "What's your pronunciation? How do you pronounce the Hebrew?" He said, "I don't know. Academic, however the academics." I said, let me hear. What did he say? Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim et haaretz. I said, you're Sfaradi. But he opened up Bereshit bara. That's the Torah. That's the opening words of the Torah. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu what? Is Borei Olam. What's Borei Olam? He created the world. And what does it tell us about creating the world? Sheshet Yamim, that are for 6 days, HaKadosh Baruch Hu atzat Shemayim v'haaretz. B'Shevi'i Shabbat V'Yinata. That's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu introduced himself to us. The end of the first parak, V'Yichulu HaShamayim v'Haaretz Chol Tzeva'ah, right? And B'Yom HaShevi'i Shabbat V'Yinata. That's the introduction. And what does he say to us later? He says to us later, Sheshet Yamim Te'aseh Melacha, V'Yom HaShevi'i Tishbot. 6 days you do melacha, and on the 7th you rest. Why? Because I did that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. And I want you to be like me. And this is our partnership. We create and we leave. And we create and we leave. We create and we leave. That's what we do together. You and me. And Am Yisrael has a special relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that is subsumed, that is held in melacha, in creation, and the development of the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created. That's what we do. And that's why Shabbat is so central to us. Oti beni uven bnei Yisrael. It's a sign between me and bnei Yisrael. Because you human beings, you're the only ones on the world that can do what I do, which is what? Create. And what is creating? Creating is I am able to think of something that doesn't exist. And I can go through steps to make it exist. What other animal on the planet can do that? So you're going to say birds, they make nests. No, they're programmed to do that. The birds don't think, something, I wonder what nest I'm going to make. They don't do that. They have in them things, programs, genes that causes them to do that. Yeah. We don't have that. We have that, but we have more than that. We have the ability to be able to think of realities that don't exist now and bring them into being. And that is one major thing that we share with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is Bria. So if we recognize that, that is a very central part of how it is that our relationship is with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if that's the case, and we're supposed to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it makes sense that his Bria, that his creation should be something that we study, that we come to understand, that we recognize not only that we look at it and study, but we also recognize that we are a part of that Bria. Because it's easy for us to forget that as well. We watch it, we look at it, we examine it, we test it, but we also forget that we are it. We are the Bria ourselves. So if we recognize that, I want to consider something. We have two ways of thinking about the world, if we're going to split it into two. We don't have to, but I'm splitting it into two. And I think that this brings down a fundamental question amongst us, Am Yisrael. Because the truth is we have two approaches in Am Yisrael as to how we should look at the Bria, how we should look at HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world. One way of looking at it is that we can see the world as a very large distraction. A distraction. That it's there, why? To try to keep us away from what we really should be doing. You with me? Yeah? What we really should be doing. And what is the world? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu make the world? To test us. I have a whole bunch of things in the world. Are you going to be going after it, or are you going to do what I told you to do and pay attention? That's one way of looking at the world. There's another way of looking at the world. And that is that we see the world as a very elaborate expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That what? It's his way of showing himself to us. Are you with me? Two ways. We're Sfaradim. What's our way? Our way follows our Hachamim. And the greatest among our Hachamim, I think we could agree, but there's not that he's the only one, but one of the greatest for sure is Moreno Harambam, Rabbi Moshe Bar Maimon. And Harambam, his approach was the second way, not the first one. Harambam's approach was the world is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's way of showing himself to us. Why? Because to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu directly we can't do. Lo yir'ani ha'adam v'hai, he said to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe wanted to. But he told Moshe, you can't see me and live basar v'adam, to be a human being, you can't do that. You want to say goodbye, you can maybe see more of me. But as long as you're in the world, you can't see me that way. But you can see me through my world. How do we know that? So Harambam writes in the Moreh Nevuchim. The Harambam writes in the Moreh Nevuchim the following. Listen to this Moreh, because I believe it is one of the most beautiful sections of the Moreh Nevuchim of the entire thing that Harambam wrote. This is what Harambam writes. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he said, look, I can't see you directly, so I have another question. He says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hode'ani na derachecha. Show me your ways. Ve'eda'acha. And I will know you through your ways. What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to Moshe? Okay, you want to know my ways? I'm going to show you my ways. What does he say to Moshe Rabbeinu? He says, Ani a'avir kol tuvi al panecha. He says, you know what, Moshe? I'm going to show you all of my good, everything that I've got. And you will know me by that. Okay, yafeh. Kol tuvi. What's kol tuvi? So Harambam tells us What's Kol Tuvi? He says, you want to know what it is? He says it's all of Maaseh Bereshit. Every detail of Maaseh Bereshit of the Bria and its interconnections. How it all connects to each other. That's Kol Tuvi. So Rambam says, you want to know how I know that? It says it in the Torah. It says, Vayar Hashem, Vayar Elohim, et kol asher asa, ve'ineh tov meod. Hashem saw all that he made, kol, and what did he say about it? Tov. Tov meod. Kol, tov. That's Kol Tuvi. That's everything that I made. And that's Harambam in the Moreh Nebuchim. So what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu show Moshe in order for Moshe to be able to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu? His creation. The whole creation. All of it. Why is it important to see how it all relates to each other? Because to understand the creation, I need to be able to see it in context, not just as isolated things. So what does that tell me? That tells me that if I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I care about serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I want to live the Brit in my life, what do I need to do? I need to study the world. I need to understand the Bria. And Harambam writes that explicitly in the Mishneh Torah. Listen, I'm going to read this to you. So it's not just me quoting in the air. You can check everything that I quote, right? The Acham will verify for me. But Harambam writes explicitly about this in what? When he talks about the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Harambam says like this. He says, this great God, right, that we have. Mitzvah le'ahava oto. It's a mitzvah for us to love him. We have to look about loving him. Right? What is the way of loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What's the best way to do that? Well, Harambam says to know him is to love him. So we have to get to know him. So what do we do? He says, when a person looks at his creation, his wondrous and great creation, miyad hu ohev, he immediately comes to love him. Because if a person sees the world and is joyful about the world, they see things that make them happy in the world, there's one thing they realize. Who made it? Kadosh Baruch Hu. There's love. And that's how Rambam says that we have to do. So that's very important. Because it means something very serious. It means that if we love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we want to know him. And how do we know him? We have to embrace the world. And not to do that is to disrespect HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't care what you made. I'm not looking at what you made. I'm not interested in what you made. I'm just looking in whatever is in front of me. So you see, the two ways of looking at things are very opposed. And we believe sometimes that the first way is the way, but we can't help it. We like the world. But what Harambam is teaching us is, yes, you're meant to like the world. You're meant to like the world, but to understand that there is purpose. So there are guidelines to how it is that I engage with the world. And that's what the Torah is for. The Torah teaches us how to be able to engage in the world if we listen to it and we care. So now there's something else that I want to share about this with you, that I want to focus a little bit more on tonight. And that is, as I said, we're not just spectators. We're not just watching the world. We are part of the world itself. We're the Bria. Yes, so it's not just I'm looking at the Bria. Part of studying the Bria is studying me. Because who made me? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So part of, and perhaps the most important part, the place where we start to begin to understand the world is to be able to look in and to be able to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made me. And why do I say it's a place to begin? It's a place to begin because it's all I've got. If you think about it, I don't have anything else except for my own consciousness and my own awareness. I mean, I see you all, Baruch Hashem, Ben Porat Yosef, but maybe you're an illusion. I don't know. I've had crazier dreams than this. I hope that you're there, right? I hope you're there. I think you're there. But all I have is what it is that my eyes and my ears and my mind and myself experience. And if I believe that you're there, then I can only do one thing. I hope that what I see and what I feel and what I experience is similar to what you do. And that's how I come to know you. So, for example, when we talk about chesed, to do kindness, to do good things to people, what do we say? We want to be able to help people, support people, give goodness to people. How do I know what's good and supportive and helpful to people? I know what it is. And if I know what it is, then I hope that you have the same experience as I do. There's a pasuk in Mishleh that says this. Pasuk in Mishleh says, Gomel nafsho ish hased. What does that mean? Gomel nafsho means a person who does for his own nefesh. That person is an ish hased. That person is a person who's able to do hased. Ocher she'ero, but a person who does not take care of themselves, who does not care for themselves, doesn't have an awareness of what is good, akhzari, is a cruel person. Why? They have no reference. I don't know what's good. If I don't know what is helpful, what is supportive, what is enlivening, what gives me strength, I have no way of knowing what would like that for you. I need to know. And it's for this reason, the first words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Abraham Avinu, right? We're going back to Abraham. He's the Brit. We have to learn everything from him. The first words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Abraham Avinu, Lech lech. Go, Abraham, for you. He could say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have said, Lech li. Go for me, Abraham. I'm God, and I'm telling you to go. Not what he said. He could have just said, Lech. Easier, simple words. Now what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said? He said, Lech lecha. Abraham, you need to go, not for me. You need to go for you. Rashi, on the pasuk, just to make sure we don't read it wrong. He says what? Lecha letovatcha lehana'atcha. Go for your good, Abraham. For your enjoyment and for your benefit, Abraham. You go for you. Why? Because you're going to be an ish chesed. I want you to give to the world. But if you, Abraham, don't know what it is to have goodness, to have enjoyment, to have benefit, you will not be able to do it for the rest of the world. You need to go for you. V'hiyeh beracha. And if you do that, you'll be beracha. I'll help you. I'll be by your side. I'm going to support you. But you need to do it. I'm not doing it. And the Hachamim tell us, Maaseh Avot, Siman Banim, that what happened to the Avot, each and every single one of us, as the children of the Banim, we must see that as signals. Siman means it's a signal, a sign for our life. And if we look at Abraham Avinu, we say that that's how we have to live. So of course we want to be people who do good, who do chesed, tzedakah, and be able to help everybody around us in the best way that we can. But the thing is, if we don't have it, if we do not support ourselves and care for ourselves, we're not doing it right. We're not doing it right. That's why Hillel Hazaken says, famously, Imen Anili, that was Hillel. The next part of that is Uchshani la'atzmi iman. If I'm going to stay only for me, so then whatever. But until I realize my life, nobody's going to live. Not HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not anybody else. I need to. And I have to be able to give myself tov and hana'ah in order to be able to go through it. Now, it doesn't mean that I have to go indulge. No, that's not good for me. So a lot of times to be able to help people, to help us understand this, I give an example. And some of my Talmidim might have heard this already, but I'm going to give it anyway. This is a good example, and it's helpful for me to hear it, so I say it for me and listen. Imagine when we have to think about how do we do good for ourselves? How do we help ourselves? It's not always easy for us to do that. We struggle with that sometimes. But consider this. If you had a young child in your care, and many of us in this room did have and do have young children in our care. Now, why do I say a young child? Because every single one of us still has a young child. It never went away. Sometimes we don't like to pay attention to it, and we put it away because we don't know what to do with it. But it's always there. The Hachamim say a Sadiq is always a Na'ar. That's why the Hachamim say, you know what's on top of the Aron Kodesh? The golden ark, right? What was on top of them? Kerubim. You know what the Zohar says? It was children. Why? Because children make us happy. That's why the Kerubim are on top of the Aron Kodesh. So a Tzaddik is always a Na'ar. A Tzaddik always holds his child. Always takes care of the child. Inside and out. So I'm saying, how do we know how to take care? Consider that you had in your care a child. Would you feed that child the way that you feed yourself? Would you sleep, to take care of the child's sleep the way that you sleep? Would you speak to the child? This is a big one. Would you speak to that child the way that you speak to yourself in your head? How you talk to yourself, think about yourself. Now, the answer may be yes, maybe no. If you speak to yourself very badly and you say yes, that's child abuse. Don't do that. But it's not good to do for us. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Abraham, this is what he's saying to Abraham. And if we're going to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's a pasuk, beautiful pasuk in the Navi. It says, "Mebisari hezeh Eloah." How do I see God? From my own flesh. From my own life. We open in the morning. You know what we're supposed to say first thing in the morning? It's not Modani. Now it's Modani. The Hachamim in the Talmud, they didn't have Modani. It's new. Harambam, he didn't have Modani. I'm not saying don't say it. We should say Modani. But what did the Hachamim want us to say? First thing in the morning when we get up. Elohai, Neshama shenatata bi tehora. The soul that is inside of me that you gave me is pure. That's Am Yisrael. You know what they say, the other religions? It starts off bad, dark. You try, maybe you can try and fix it if God helps you. That's not what we say. We start the morning, Elohai, Neshama shenatata bi tehora. And I always point out, it doesn't say in the Siddur, a little star there, it says, only say this if you're behaving nicely. It doesn't say that. Doesn't matter what you did last night. Doesn't matter what you did last night. Next morning, Elohai, Neshama shenatata bi tehora. That never changes. Maybe I may be misbehaving, maybe. And I have to deal with that. But my Neshama, at the core, tehora. And that we always have to come back to. So when we say, how do we take care of ourselves? If you had a child in your care, a pure child, would you treat that child how you treat yourself? And what we must know is, if we don't, that is going against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is why it's so important to support our humanity. Because that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu made us. And it's the same thing as the question that I asked about the world. We can look at our humanity and think of it as a distraction. No, I'm a human being and I like things and I enjoy the world, but I shouldn't do that. I have to pull myself as far away from my humanity as I can. That's not us. That's not how we live. Certainly not the Sfaradim. Sfaradim don't live that way. We have joie de vivre. That's how we always live. Why? Not just because we like it. Because we see it as part of the covenant, as part of the Brit with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Who made us? He did. This is how he made us. Lech lecha, Abraham, letovatcha, lehanatcha. We have to take care of ourselves and love ourselves and care about ourselves if we're going to do anything good in this world. And if we're going to be able to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do I know that? The Torah says to me, "Ve'ahavta l'ra'acha kamocha." It could very easily say, the Torah could have said to me, "Ve'ahavta l'ra'acha." Love your friend, love your neighbor. It doesn't say that. It says, "Ve'ahavta l'ra'acha," how? Kamocha. How you love yourself. And we all think, well, I'm not going to love anybody like I love myself. Really? How well do you love yourself? Not so simple. That's the question. The guide of that pasuk is you love yourself. When you love yourself, that's how we do. What does Rabbi Akiva say about that pasuk? Ze klal gadol. You want to know what is I was talking about principles, right? Klalim. Rabbi Akiva says an astonishing thing. He says, you want to know what is the greatest klal of the Torah? You know what? Who else says that? Hillel HaZaken. These are not small hachamim. This is Rabbi Akiva. This is Hillel HaZaken. Hillel HaZaken was Nasi Israel. What does Hillel HaZaken say? Almost like Rabbi Akiva. There's a story in Masechet Shabbat. What's the story in Masechet Shabbat? Listen to the story. A person came to Hillel HaZaken. He was a goy. He wanted to convert. He wanted to be a ger. He says to Hillel HaZaken, Geireni, I want you to convert me on the condition that you can teach me the whole Torah al-regel ahad. You can teach me the whole Torah on one foot. It's a very strange story because since when does the goy give the conditions of how you should be converted? Hillel HaZaken said, okay. It says, Giyireh. He converted him. And that means that the next thing that he told him was actually the whole Torah. Al-regel ahad. He says, okay. What you don't like, what you hate, don't do to your friend. That's the whole Torah, he says. Idach Pirusha. Everything else is Perush. Zil Gemor. Go learn. What? That's Shatnez? That's Kurbanot? The whole Torah is that. And what is that? De'alach Saneh. What do you hate? That's the reference. I need to know myself. I need to know who is this person that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, because this is the only one that I can know. This is the only one that I can, and I'm the only one that can live my life. Nobody else can do it for me, and I do that together with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the more that we pull ourselves away from our humanity, from our life, from our being, the more that we pull ourselves away from the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, the more we pull ourselves away from the Brit and from the legacy of Abraham Avinu. I want you to hear that. But that's it. I'm going to say it again. The more that we pull ourselves away from us and from the world, we pull ourselves away from the Brit and Abraham Avinu. Make no mistake. And that is why, for example, listen to this Gemara. I wanted to read you this Gemara. It's Masechet Ta'anit. What's Ta'anit? Fast. Fasting, yeah? So the Hachamim say, Rabbi Yosef says, Asur le'adam nisagef et asmo b'ta'anit. A person is not allowed to cause himself suffering by voluntarily going into ta'aniyot, by fasting, causing himself to suffer, right? Ta'anit literally means to deprive, deprivation. So it says, how does Rabbi Yosef know that? How did he know that you're not allowed to do that, you're not supposed to do that? Because it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he created the human being, he blew into the human being life. Whose breath? His breath. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's breath is our soul, but the lenefesh haya. And that's what caused us to be alive. So what it's saying? Neshama shenatati bach hayeha. The soul that I gave you, make sure that it's alive and well. That's the Hachamim. That's what Hachamim tell us. So I want to close with this. And then if there's any questions, I'll answer. There's a story. Because when I say to you that when we pull ourselves away from us, from our own selves and our care and our own life, when we pull ourselves away from living a full life and experiencing HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world within the framework of Torah, that we are pulling ourselves away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Brit. Listen to this story. It says also in Masechet Ta'anit, Rabbi Elazar, he spent time with his rabbi, and he learned for a long time with his rabbi, and he was in his head, he was filled with thought, and unbelievably happy. And he's riding along on his mule, right, by the river. And it says he's at the river, and everything's beautiful, and he's thinking, and he sees a person who's ugly. That's what Gemara says, he was ugly. What did Rabbi Elazar say to him? He said, is everybody in your village as ugly as you? That's what and what did he say to him back? He said, I don't know. Ask the one who made me. Rabbi Elazar realized the minute he said that, hata, that he sinned. He got off his mule and he bowed in front of the man. And he said, please forgive me. The man didn't forgive him, which is not good. But he said, please forgive me. Why is that important? Because you think how horrible it was. Rabbi Elazar said that to the person. Rabbi Elazar realized right away and he asked for mehila. His head was somewhere else. But again, when we look in the mirror, I'm going to ask you, you don't have to answer me, I'm just asking you to think about it. When you look in the mirror, do you look at who's looking back at you in the mirror? Do you catch the eyes of the person who's looking back at you in the mirror? And if you do, which I'm going to bet that you don't, we look at the hair, we look at the wrinkles, we look at what's going, but the person that's looking back at us, when you look at that person, how do you feel about that person? Do you look at that person and feel love? Or do you avoid looking at the person? I know it's a hard question, I know, I'm sorry. But this is Torah, and Shavuot is coming. And we have to recognize whether we want to receive the Torah. Why is the connection? Because I'm suggesting, you know why we're here in Monte Sinai, in Mexico City, and everything that we're doing? 2,000 years after we came out of Eretz Yisrael, the Churban Beit HaMikdash, because of our Torah. Make no mistake. It's the only reason why we're still here. And that's part of our own love and the recognition of the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us. Because if he did not have his love for us, yes, there were casualties, very serious casualties. I don't minimize that. But if it was not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had love for us, we would not be here. But here we are. You and me, all of us, each one of us. When you look in the mirror, the person that you see looking back at you, do you love that person? Because if you don't love that person, there's no lech lecha, letovatcha, lehanatcha. There's no ve'avta l'racha kamocha. There's no de'alach saneh l'chaveracha. Do you hear why it's so important? It's everything. That's why the Hachamim say, Neshama she'atati b'cha ahayeha Elohai Neshama she'atata bi techora. So if you look at that person and you don't feel love, start to get to know that person and to embrace the child within that person and to begin to be gentle with yourself and to recognize that it's a beautiful thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created. And if you don't like that person, tell the maker. If there's a feeling that you don't feel well about that person, tell the one who made it. Because it's really about our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that brings us back to the Brit. All of us here, everything that we're doing, the Torah and the Tefillah and the school and the community and everything that we're doing is based on one thing, the Brit. And that Brit is still valid and strong to this hour, right now, till now. And we're going to recognize and celebrate it in Shavuot. That this is what we have with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And that we have been walking with him for 3,000 years. From Abraham, 4,000 years. That is our Avodah. And the reason I share that with you tonight is because it's important for us never to forget that. Because there are other ways of looking, but I'm telling you, our way, this is our way. This is the way we've done for at least 1,000 years since Harambam, but I'm showing you even the Talmud, this is our way. Don't forget it. And don't doubt it. Be strong in it. Remember that it's not some compromise to live your life nicely and strongly. No, that's the Avodah. And if we follow the Torah guides us how to do that. And we do that in that context. I wish everybody a Chag Sameach. And thank you very much for giving me the time to share with you.